Hello, today I will connect the wires to the ESCs, the data wires and telemetry wires, and the wires to the peripherals like receiver and camera and the VTX. What I'm doing here now, I found out that I would like to mount the ESC wires from the bottom of the flight controller. Just stick the wire through the hole and solder it from the other side, to have a clean build and do not risk any shorts. I'm adding a little bit of flux. If you noticed, I also changed the tip of the solder for the smaller one, because these pads are really small and we need a precise tip for this type of work. Okay, we bridge the pins, so we take a little bit of flux, free the tip, yeah, I think it's okay. It's very easy to bridge those pins. Very easy. The ESC will be mounted on the arm like this, And the reason why I wanted the signal wires come from below of the ESC is follow. Let me zoom a little bit closer and I'll explain why I mounted the wires this way. As you can see, these two little pins are the signal wires, and this one are power wires for the ESC. If we would connect the wires from the top side, like this for example, you can see there is a kind of big crossing section with the crossing space with the power wires. So in the case we will be mounting the wires on the top side, we must be very careful not to touch the uninsulated part of the wire to the ground pin or to the battery pin. So when you're mounting it from below, you are just avoiding the possible issues in the future, because on the top side there are no crossing wires. Also the space between the pins is very small. So once you solder the wire here, it can be very difficult to solder the wire next to it. So I think this method is the cleanest possible solution. And also this is the reason, these small pads, why I do not recommend this flight controller Kakute F4 V2 AIO for the beginners. Now let's take a look to the ports we will use for the receiver connection, VTX connection, and the camera connection. The receiver will be connected to UART3. So these two pins are UART3. The good news for the FrSky users is that this port has automatic inversion for the S-bus, so no hacks on the receiver are needed. Also, the nearby pin is 5 volt for the receiver. Ground we can use for the receiver. And the SP port is smart port. It's connected to UART1 and is also inverted. The video ports are here. This is video out to the VTX, video in to the OSD, 5 volts for the camera, and the ground for the camera. If you want to connect a buzzer, it's this B+ pin. And for other peripherals, we have SDA and SCL. As a receiver, I'm using FrSky X4R SB. I already stripped some part of the connector, pinhead connector, because I'm using only these 3 pins. This pin is the receive signal, plus, minus. So the yellow cable will go to the S-bus, plus to the 5 volt, black to the ground. And this one is smart port. Let's connect the cables to the flight controller. I'm connecting the smart port. Where? Now 5 volt for the receiver. Now S-bus connection to R3. And now Let's connect the ground. Get the last one is always one with the most problems. I don't want to overheat the pad. It looks like on the pad is some kind of mess, and the solder won't stick to it.
Two hours later.
So I finally managed to solder the wire from the other side. So let's clean the mess after the rosin with the alcohol. I'm using isopropyl alcohol for this cleaning. Without cleaning, it's hard to see the quality of the joints. Gently brush with the brush. Now you can see the joints. This is how the receiver will be mounted in the frame. I use the connectors for the purpose of easy maintenance, so if something happens, I'm able to disconnect the receiver from the flight controller and work on the parts separately. Next part will be installation of camera wires. I already installed the camera into the frame by 3 screws on each side. It was very easy, just slip the camera inside and screw it by screws provided. I also modified the wire. I removed the unnecessary audio wire because my VTX has built-in microphone, and I also removed the VSense wire. This wire is for measuring the voltage of battery in embedded OSD what the camera has. We can keep the wires kinda long. This is not a problem. We can twist the wires inside like this. Yeah, twist, and then wind it and keep it inside the camera mount. This way I will be able to pull the camera out from the frame and tune it like for example when I need to refocus the lens or clean it, or some other maintenance what can occur. The camera also has this 2-pin connector. This is for the module which manipulates the embedded OSD. The module looks like this. You have some buttons for menu navigation and also the cable with connector to plug into mentioned connector. So I keep the wires pretty long and let's solder them to the flight controller. So as mentioned before, we will solder the 5V video in and ground for the camera. Video in. And the last wire is always problematic. I think it's good. Let's clean it up again with isopropyl alcohol to see the joints. So how does it look like? Yeah, kinda. Not bad. As the VTX, I am using the AKK FX2 for the channel video transmitter with smart audio and maximum output power of 800 milliwatts. So it's kinda beast in the output watts. Connection is done via the connector and the cable, this one, and the VTX supports the 5V for the camera, what we are not going to use because we are using the 5V from the flight controller, so we can remove the cables from the connector, and I would like to show you how to do it if you don't know. Firstly, you need some sharp object. Lift up the plastic stuff. Simultaneously pull the wire out, and I'm doing it just from the camera LCD, so it's not so easy. So this is the 5V for the camera, not used. and same for the ground. Lift and pull. Nicely. Just quick note, the VTX will sit on the top of the flight controller, like this. So we will be mounting or soldering the wires to the bottom side. We stick it through the top side and solder it on the bottom. And the power wire will probably go to the battery pins, battery pads. And smart audio, I guess it's connected to UART6. Again, we can keep a little bit of slack with the wires for easier manipulation with the stack. So we need wires as long as comfortable for the flipping the VTX out of the stack. If we will need to work on the flight controller itself in the future, so keep this in mind. Do not over shorten your cables. It will make your maintenance in the future harder. So yeah, I'll probably keep pretty long wires here also. What I'm thinking about now is the top mounted gyro. Can be a problem when the cable from VTX to the power will go this way. It can touch the gyro and create some unintentional gyro input. So here can be the good idea to tape the power cable to bottom side of the VTX, so any loose cable movement will be prevented. This is just a little pro tip. So now we will solder video out for VTX. Yellow cable, this is video in, this is video out. Nice and clear. The smart audio wire, the green one, will go to the TX6. It's recommended by the manual from this flight controller. TX6 should be second hole from the ground wire here, so this one. I hope. Another pro tip: when you are soldering some joint for a longer time, you can see that the solder starts to behave differently than it behaves on the start. This is the reason is that the rosin is vaporized and the property of the solder are changed. In this case, the solder starts to create some spikes when you are removing the tip of the solder. In this case, you need to re-rosin the solder or use some flux on the joint. This will fix the tension in the solder and make it flow really nice again. Before the soldering, the VTX power to the power pads. I need to solder there the battery leads, and this will be totally experimental approach. I chose the 12 gauge wire, but the 12 gauge wire is really thick. How do you solder it to make the biggest area of the contact? When you solder it like this, you are only touching the pad by the bottom part of the wire. So my idea is use both pads on the top and on the bottom. I create V-like shape from the wire like this and just solder it on the top and the bottom. This way should have maximized the surface area which is touching the pad and the wire. But I've never done this before, this approach. I have no idea if it succeeds, and I have no idea if some wire hair will not bridge it with the other pad. This will be a total experiment. Let's do it! Let's start with the tuning of the wire. Should be nicely soaked, but not over soaked to the solder, otherwise it will lose the flexibility at the end when the solder is sucked into the wire. Oh, I have no idea how I will solder this on the flight controller. It looks good. It was easier than I expected. I think we are there. Just move this one slightly to the right. Yeah, there is a problem. If you can see this hair between the wires, there is a thin. I'm not sure if I can focus, but there is a thin hair. Anyway, I'm planning to conformal coat at least the battery wires to prevent any loose hairs touching the other side of the battery polarity. I don't want to see any magic smoke. Yeah, you see, the wire a little bit soak up the solder. no beeping. We are good to go. So I put all 4 ESCs on the arms. I fixed them with the zip tie and I shortened the power cables for the ESC and tinned them already. Now we will solder the cables from the flight controller to the ESC. We'll do the same procedure for all 4 ESC. So all ESCs are now connected to the flight controller, and I will put them into the heat-shrink tube. Not the whole ESC, just the half or 2/4, 3/4, to keep the motor connectors out. So I would be able to connect the motors, and then with another heat shrink I will cover the motor connectors. And after I put the heat shrink on the ESCs, before I attach the motors, I will check the functionality of ESCs. So I will plug the USB, I will plug the battery, and I will try to refresh the ESCs with the new BL-Heli firmware. Let's do the first battery plug check. Very carefully. Nothing is smoking, LEDs are blinking. So let's go to the PC and try to flash the new BL-Heli software. So this is the BL-Heli suite. We need to select the port with our flight controller. We do connect. We checked. Okay, and we see all 4 ESCs. Let's see if there is a new version. Yes, there is version 32.4. We have 32.3. So let's flash it.